I want to thank Utah Nonprofit Housing for talking with me today. My name is Erin Mendenhall. I am the 36th mayor of Salt Lake City, elected in 2019, and I serve a 4-year term from 2020 to 2024, and perhaps longer. I ran for mayor because I'm passionate about Salt Lake City. I've been working in City Hall for the last 6 years as a councilwoman, and I see the opportunities at our hands. There are incredible ingredients at play here. We have growth, we have investment, we have a passionate population that is educated, that's engaged, and we have the opportunity to put these things together and get more out of it. Now, the economic health cannot continue forever the way that it is. Those things ebb and flow, and we have this incredible opportunity at play right now that I wanted to get my hands on as the mayor only can, and also be able to work with the city council in a way that we haven't seen in our city in a really long time. Both knowing the tools of each of the branches of government, but having the ability to have strong relationships to get things done too. So I'm excited to be the mayor. There's a lot that we've done in just a short time I've been in office, but there's 1,000 more things that we're about to tackle in the coming years. It's different from city to some degree, but in Salt Lake City, our 200,000 or so residents have 7 people on the city council that represent those unique areas of the city, and a mayor that balances the other side of the government. The city council makes laws and approves the budget, and then it's the mayor's job to execute all of those policies and ordinances and spend the money that the council's appropriated to make the city run. I really think there's 2 aspects to running a city. One of those is the day-to-day basics, keeping people safe, making sure the water's clean and up where it needs to be, making sure the system is working. And then there's the visionary piece of it, which looks down the road and makes sure that what we're investing in, what we're planning for, is going to make life better in the future for our residents. So that's my job as the mayor. I work very closely with the city council, and I came from the city council over the last 6 years. But my job is to listen to the residents, listen to the people who've invested in this area, and together come up with the vision of where we want to go. I got my start in politics without meaning to get into politics. I was a new mother and looked at the air pollution in our valley with new eyes when that first baby of mine was born. I couldn't imagine raising him in a place that could take years off of his life from that cumulative impact of exposure to the pollution that we have sometimes here. I thought about leaving, but not for very long because I like to work. And so I got to work volunteering for nonprofits focused on air quality, tabling at farmers markets and community events, trying to get other people feeling empowered to do something to clean up our air. That led to helping found a nonprofit called Breathe Utah, which has been around about a decade now. I worked for years with that organization, and then I ran for city council when I realized how much we can get done at the city level. I think a lot of people feel disconnected from government, particularly at the federal level with Congress and the presidential situation. But city business and city work is really where our lives connect with government. Whether you're turning on your faucet, you're taking a walk on a sidewalk, the street lights come on, the roads are there for you, there's fire department waiting to help. Those are all the daily components that make life work in the city setting, and that's all what the business of Salt Lake City, making life safe, well, and creating opportunities for people is our job. When I decided to run for city council, it seemed like a really big, scary idea, but something drew me to it. And at the core of it is that I love people. I love meeting strangers. I think that most people are mostly good, and it's a delight to get to know those pieces of people. So city council is sort of like the lowest rung in the ladder of government. It's closest to the people. And you really win that office in large part by knocking on every door of every voter, and usually twice at least. So I found that as a new candidate back in 2013, I loved meeting people at their doorstep, asking them what they cared about, what they were worried about in their neighborhood, what they wished they'd see differently in the area. And as it turns out, we connected on many, many more levels than just air quality. although air pollution is the biggest issue for Salt Lake residents. When it came down to all of the other components that make a life livable and well, I wanted to work, and I was ready to get to work listening to our people and then reflecting that in the way we invest as a city and the laws that we pass here. After doing that for 6 years, I think any council person in the country probably looks at the office of mayor and thinks, I would have done that differently, or I wish I could get my hands on that part of the process. And over those years, I really fell in love in a bigger way with city work and saw that I think I had something to give in bringing it to the office of mayor. So I did. I ran for mayor last year. I was elected by our people, and actually I'm the first city council person in Salt Lake City to be elected by the public into the office of mayor. So it's a great honor. I'm in my 4th week as mayor, and we've already gotten a few good things done, but I have a few more years to go, and I'm thrilled about it. I started as a protester, as an activist around air quality, and I felt like the conversations I wished those people were having, that we were trying to get the attention of, that I wasn't bringing my voice to make that happen through standing outside and holding my sign. And trust me, I still show up to rallies and protests, but I wanted to find a way to get into the conversation. And I turned in many ways from an activist to an advocate, to ending up being someone at the table. Today I chair the State Air Quality Board, and I'm the mayor of our capital city, but in my heart, I'm an air quality activist still. And I think each of us have some piece of a conversation, whether it's about housing or public transportation, or it is about air quality or education, that we wish people were talking about. We don't hear our voice yet in that conversation. So getting curious about who is it having those meetings, and is there a public comment section, or is there a way that I can go and listen to what's happening there and then have my voice heard in some way? I will tell you that in Salt Lake City government, we want to hear from you. No matter what your issue might be, what your concern might be, or your great idea, we want to hear from you. And there is a venue for people to be engaged in all of the conversations we have in City Hall. And you can find out more at the website that we'll share after this. One of the easiest ways to start to access the conversation is through your community council. So no matter where you live in Salt Lake City, you're in a neighborhood group called a community council. And we also have a website with that and a map. You can go click on where you live and find out when they meet, which is typically once a month. They're usually at a library or at a community center, and you can show up and hear about maybe development happening in your area, what the public safety is looking like, and then have your voice heard at that most neighborhood level, and it comes back to us here in City Hall. Another way to get engaged is make sure you're registered to vote. This year, of course, we'll be having big national votes, and then in the following year, we'll be back to voting for some city council people here in Salt Lake City. Your vote matters. Some of these come down to fewer than 100 votes that determine an election. So every vote truly counts, and we'd love to have you engaged. There are a lot of ways that you can register to vote. Some of those include going down to the county complex at State Street and 21st South. You can show up and register to vote there. You can do it online. You can even show up on election day at a polling location and become registered to vote at the same time that you make that vote happen. In Salt Lake City, we have done everything we can to make it as easy as possible to vote. So if you're registered to vote and you live in Salt Lake City, you're going to get your ballot in the mail. You don't even have to put a stamp on it. You sign your name, fill in the bubbles, as many as you want or as little as you want, stick it back in the mail. You've got 3 weeks to return it. And it actually doubled our voter turnout by going to a vote by mail system. You can still show up at a polling location on election day, but we try to make it as easy as possible for you to have your vote cast. There's a number of ways that you can talk directly to my office and myself about your concerns and your ideas around Salt Lake City. Our website is one of those. Of course, there's email. But I also hold office hours with the mayor. About once a month, we hold time here in City Hall, and you can call the office, which is in the website, of course, and set up a time to sit down with me for 5 or 10 minutes, tell me about your idea, your concern, and let me get to work on that here in City Hall. Another way is our library office hours, which is something I kicked off after I was elected in November, but before I formally took this office. And we go out into libraries throughout the city. in the evenings sometimes, or a Saturday morning. We try to make it at convenient times for people to get out. And again, you can sign up to sit down, talk to me and a couple of my staff people, so we make sure that we follow up on your ideas. And it's a wonderful way to connect with the community. It really fills my cup to hear from people and to have a one-on-one conversation. As mayor of Salt Lake City, I want us to build a city where everyone can afford the housing that they need. Young or old, new to this country, or multi-generational families, none of us should be spending more than 30% of our income on our housing costs per month. And too many of us already are. About 50% of the renters in Salt Lake City are spending more than 30% of their income on their housing. And this compromises the stability, really, of the community as a whole. I've needed affordable housing at many stages in my own life. We all go through transitions, whether it's in college or your divorce or you lose your job, or really housing is just growing at a rate that our wages are not. And that's a reality we are all facing in the state of Utah. Affordable housing is critical. I want Salt Lake City to remain a place of diversity where people can age in place, where a new family can immigrate here and be able to find housing close to where the kids go to school and where the parents are working. Live, work, and play is the goal that we have here. And part of that also means not just concentrating affordable housing in areas with lower opportunities. We need to grow our housing opportunities across the city. And we know from a worldwide and in a national perspective that the strongest and most thriving communities have a diversity of incomes within them, even a diversity of incomes within a building. And so as we invest in affordable housing here in Salt Lake City, that is my goal, that we grow housing across the city, and that when we invest in a property, in a new project that's happening, that there's a diversity of incomes within that, because that's what makes healthy living in a healthy community. No matter where you live in Salt Lake City, we want you here. Salt Lake City is a magnet for people who come from around the country, around the region, around our state, to be who they are, to live their best life. And we want to make that possible on an ongoing basis. So having your voice in the processes that we do, helping us decide how do we invest our money, how do we create neighborhoods that are stronger, your voice matters, your experience matters, no matter what it might be. For us to create a city that is truly welcoming of the diversity that is here and that we want to attract, we've got to hear from everybody. So find a way to become engaged, whether it's at your community council level, with your ballot in November, or showing up to a public hearing. Maybe you want to serve on a board or a commission, which are all volunteer staffed by our residents here in the city. There's so many ways for your voice to come to the table, and we welcome you.